This is the Makeup Show podcast, where we take some time every week to talk all things about makeup, from kit to career, from artistry to inspiration, and everything in between. With decades of experience in all areas of the industry, award-winning makeup artists Danessa Myricks and James Vincent travel the world meeting and educating makeup lovers. In this podcast, Danessa and James share the wealth of their knowledge and career insights with you.
Hello, hello.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
I'm Danessa Myricks.
And I'm James Vincent.
And this is the Makeup Show podcast.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yay.
We have guests in the house today.
We have Jake with us today, and we are going to talk about some important things. But before that, I want to talk about the fact that, how are you guys getting used to being on camera now for all of these things? Now we're recording the podcast, and so I have to prepare in a completely different way.
Totally not getting used to it at all. You know, on a regular day, I look like I just kind of got out of bed. So this is like a lot of extra work.
I am very glad that you guys warned me, because when you first said, yeah, we're going to record the podcast in the morning, I've been sleeping a little later. And I was like, yeah, great, whatever, I'll roll out of bed. And then you were like, we're recording it for YouTube. And I was like, great, I will shower and prepare.
Yeah. Oh, no. And everybody's shaming me about sleeping late. People keep being like, oh, we have a 9 a.m. meeting. Oh, we'll let you sleep late. We'll do a 9 a.m. meeting. I'm like, 9 a.m.? I can't fall asleep at night. So, this is early for me, y'all. I put on a little liner to try and hide the sleepless night. So
I'm kind of naturally a night owl. So anything like this, or even Christmas vacation or whatever, I always fall into habits of being up super late. But that's also when I am most creative. And
me too. I just had that conversation with somebody. I'm so much better at night, always.
No, it's I can be like, oh, I'm so tired, and all day long, and then I go to sleep, and I'm like, ooh, I have got a great idea.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
The minute your head hits the pillow.
I wanted to ask you back, Jake, because the last episode that we did with you was so amazing, and every week Danessa's like, should we have Jake back? And I was like, wait until we have real information, because what we want to talk about today, and what I think Danessa and I are getting so many questions about from artists all over, is what do I need to do to start rebuilding my professional makeup kit? And last week, we talked a little bit about some of the products, the way you can adapt your product and adjust, and things that you have to have for sanitation, as we're getting new information from the studios and the CDC. But I know that you are such an expert when it comes to putting those pieces together and gathering those disposables and disinfectant products. So I know, you've been having stress about it, Danessa.
Yeah, my secret fantasy was having you on to just give me a checklist for dummies, to be honest. It's not like I don't know the information, but it's just can you just make it easy? I pulled out my kit. I was like, I feel like it should be getting ready right now. Yeah. And I was like, okay, but what? I just want to make sure I have everything. I really need a cheat sheet just so that I'm 100% prepared. Just break it like kit for dummies, sanitizer kit for dummies.
I think there's a lot of anxiety in the air in general right now, but I know I feel the same as you. Every time I think about getting my kit out or what it's going to look like going back to work, I think there is a lot of anxiety, and I think that's because, partially we just don't totally know. We're just starting to see a couple of states reopen and see some things, some hair salons and things like that reopening. Yeah. And I don't think we'll totally know for a couple of weeks or months, but we can operate with some of the new knowledge that we know, and certainly with all of the old knowledge that we previously knew, because the truth of the matter is, when we're doing makeup, we're not just going to be worrying about this particular disease. Of course, that's going to be on our mind, SARS-CoV-2, but we have to safeguard our clients against all of the old stuff that we always have.
Yeah.
Pink eye and MRSA and all of the other nasty stuff that can infiltrate our makeup. So a lot of it is just refreshing ourselves on what we already know. So.
Well, and I think we're an industry that has always practiced proper hygiene and sanitation, or we know, maybe not everybody's doing it, but y'all know what you need to do.
Right.
And so I think this is really an opportunity for all of us to get on the same plane. I think that it's, when you talk up to hairstylists or you talk to estheticians or nail techs, anyone else related in our industry, they have real standards and protocols for hygiene and proper practices. And I think because makeup artists come into this business in so many different ways and we work in so many different areas that some people are practicing and some aren't. And I think what we really need to do is hold each other accountable. I also think it's one of those times where we can level up. We have an opportunity here to work with this shift to elevate what the job of makeup artist is and what our role is on set to make people feel safe. Because my thought process is we already take care of people in a very vulnerable position, right? And now we're also going to have to make them feel like they're being taken care of when it comes to good hygiene and stuff as well. And I know you've got a lot of great ideas for starting to build a better makeup kit.
Yeah, so I mean, some of this will be review, some of it'll be stuff that we touched on in the last podcast, which I actually just gave a re-listen to, and we had it was a really wide-ranging conversation. It was a really good conversation.
Sidebar, it was one of our highest rated podcasts, so secretly you may be a co-host.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
When one of us goes on maternity leave.
Exactly.
I'm a secret sanitation celebrity for you guys. I love that.
Exactly.
You're the Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
You are Johnny Carson.
Can I get like one of the like young cute hosts? Can I be Jimmy?
Sure. I mean, if you want to, I would rather be Joan Rivers. You or a talk or a chat or a, those shows where it's just a bunch of people like talking all day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Normally.
I could be Chelsea Handler. I could go for that. No, so some of the things that we talked about in the last episode, just absolutely essential things. The first thing, keeping your hands clean. We definitely touched on the importance of not only hand sanitizers and using them frequently and in view of your client. That's one thing that might be changing because, in the interim period, we very well might need to be gloved. I definitely think you should have your hand sanitizer with you in your kit at all times. It is a great option for when you can't be washing your hands. But I think I think that's one of the shifts we're going to see is more hand washing. And then during applications, possibly looking at having to have medical grade gloves on, at least in this interim period where we are still learning so much about exactly how this illness is spread and just being extra cautious. So if you're one of those artists that really likes to work off the back of your hand or use body heat, we really might be looking at a world where that's not possible, at least for a little while. I think that's very likely. But yeah, we definitely touched on the importance of actually washing your hands. I think some people really rely on the hand sanitizers. We know for a fact that while hand sanitizers kill a lot of bacteria, nothing beats good old-fashioned soap and water.
I want to ask about this because this is where most of my anxiety is coming from, to be quite honest, because I've always been an artist that works with my hands, throughout the entire application. And I'm just,
Me too.
I'm very good about washing my hands in front of the client or say, excuse me, let me just wash my hands before we get started. And I always have my sanitizer out. James, yours is always sitting right there in front of me. And even throughout the application, I'm always pausing, taking a wipe, wiping my hands and spraying my hands. And I'm just wondering, could that be enough? I just can't imagine doing makeup with gloves on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really with you. I think we are going to, at least for a short term, be looking at a lot of practices that I think most of us would find unimaginable a few months ago. Doing someone's makeup is such an intimate process. None of us want to be in a surgical gown or or wearing a mask, or even have our client wearing a mask until we get to the, the lower half of their face, which is another thing some people are talking about, face shields, all of that stuff. But until this virus is better understood, and just knowing now what we know, that it is so incredibly contagious and is airborne, I think we are looking at a world where every possible precaution and safety measure is going to be expected of us. So I'm with you. We talked about that in the last episode, the sort of debate over whether or not hands were okay. And, in my view, a clean hand is just as viable an option as a clean makeup brush. But yeah. I think knowing what we know now, and knowing that this virus can so easily be on skin or surfaces, I think we might be looking at a world where it's possibly a requirement, at least for a little while, until we know more.
Well, I'm going to break it down section by section, because I think there are different things at play here. We work with our hands, especially as New York makeup artists. I've always worked with my hand, but I know that I can use any tool in my kit, any sponge, airbrush, whatever I need to do to achieve the look. So I think a lot of it is just going to be about adaptability. And I do think that there are precautions that we can take with wearing capes or wearing masks or gloves. And I think it's just going to be the new normal, and we will adjust and adapt. When I started doing makeup, I was assisting makeup artists who would take one mascara and pass it down the line to 20 girls. Top makeup artists in the industry who would wet their brushes with their tongue, and we saw a shift in hygiene coming in. So I think that it's possible. Is it going to be easy? No, but of course we're going to do what we need to do for our clients. And I think we'll come up with different ways. Maybe it's keeping a blow dryer on set to be able to heat up, some of the products that you're working with, so you get that little bit of body heat or things like that. But when it comes to hand washing, I want to stress this. One of the things that you'll notice when you watch Danessa and I work, one of the first things we say to our client is, I've just washed my hands, or I'm just going to go wash my hands. And I think that artists who assist Danessa and I have already learned those protocols, because we're coming from the hair industry and we're coming from other places where those practices are in place. I want our listeners to remember that the role of the makeup artist has always been to make your client comfortable. And I think that we're going to take our lead from there and our government organizations. But I think making sure when you come to set, making sure that you have on your call sheets all of the information that you need, that you have running water, that you have soap in your kit in case it's not available to you, and you do have hand sanitizing product available. If we talk about sanitation of product, Jake, specifically, Danessa and I kind of touched on this a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that you think, what is Alcone looking at to provide the industry better product for sanitation? Yeah, so, in the last episode, we touched on the great alcohol debate, the 70 versus 99. Danessa, that was like your big take home. You were like mind blown. But just to reiterate for anyone who didn't listen, 70% alcohol is what's recommended by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. And the reason for that is that the higher water content penetrates the bacterial cell wall. Now, this current epidemic that we're dealing with is not a bacteria. It's a virus. However, 70% alcohol, as far as we know, isopropyl alcohol is very effective. And the reason for that is that essentially the virus is wrapped in a little lipid layer, a little layer of fat, and the alcohol is going to melt that protective layer of fat down. And once that's gone, it essentially disintegrates. It's not built to hold up to the elements. So we still do, as far as we know, that advice is still accurate and proper to use 70% alcohol when sanitizing your surfaces, your stainless steel palette, and your palette knife, which
we also touched on in the last episode. Those are very important sanitary tools for scooping out and not working out of your pallets, right? Hand sanitizers, which we just touched on, but also quick brush cleaners. We know that those can kill most bacteria and viruses, so spot cleaning your brushes. That's another one where I feel like we might be changing on the fly. I feel like, you know, not knowing what we don't know right now, that those quick dry brush cleaners might be something that we push to the side a little bit, and just bring extra brushes. I think that would be my recommendation just right now while we're still learning, would be knowing that soap and water does kill this thing in the same way. It melts that lipid layer down on the outside of the virus. So knowing that, really relying on our traditional soap and water brush cleaners, our deep cleaners, if you want to call them that, and really relying on those methods, and then just bringing extra brushes to set rather than spot cleaning in between, I think is a precautionary measure that might be really smart to take in the interim. And then one thing that I've seen talk of, and this isn't something that we sell at Alcone right now, but who knows, maybe we will in the near future, is these UV.
I want to talk about the UVA, UVB lights, but first I want to go back to brushes. When we're talking about brushes, one of the other things that Danessa and I have been discussing, because you know she is my organized sister, she loves a label. She loves.
Oh my God, I wear my label maker out.
I think that one of the things that I'm suggesting to people is that you are using quick dry brush sanitizer the way we always have in between if you are working with the same client.
Right.
And we are also suggesting that even with powder product that you are scraping it from a palette right now or working with individual product, or what I am doing is just making sure that I'm working with creams and things like Color Fix that I can squeeze right out onto the palette. But we want to ensure that every night when you're done with your work that you are cleaning these brushes with soap and water, because this is the most effective tool. And what I'm suggesting to my artists, because we do have people that have been had to go back to work this week in Texas and other places, that you come with your brush sets the way we kind of have always carried our brushes as one big set, that you make several small sets that you can set aside and unseal them in front of your client.
Yeah.
Working the way tattoo artists work, or working the way estheticians work, where you're taking your sanitary product and you're opening it in the environment in front of your client so that they can see the work that you're putting in to your sanitation. I think that we need to remember too that when it comes to brushes and tools, that there are certain materials that work better. If you've been carrying plastic to work on as your palette, you probably want to switch to something stainless or glass that allows you to really wipe it down. Or even, you know, I really am someone who loves sustainability, but paper palettes are maybe a way to work right now, because that way you know that you're working with one client and then you're
disposing.
I want to talk about the UVA, UVB lights, because this is something I'm sure Danessa is getting the emails too. I have had a few companies reach out to me that are sending me products to take a look at, and I'm going to review them and go through all of the claims and things like that. But what are you guys thinking about this UVA, UVB light coming into the makeup industry?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, the little bit of, you know, I've had a lot of time on my hands in this period, and I've spent a lot of it just reading up on, you know, all the articles coming out about this disease. And one thing that we do know is that it is very vulnerable to sunlight and UV light, that because it is such a simple, small thing, that, again, anything that breaks up that lipid layer on the outer surface can really destroy it very quickly. So, you know, that's one thing that they've already been finding scientifically, is that this does not survive long in the open air. And they believe the reason for that is the UV light. So I know that I've seen a huge uptick in ads for these things, and I've seen a lot of discussion in the makeup groups. I think it's something that we've used in salons and in medical environments for a long time. So why not? Like, why not be on the safe side, and why not throw your palette under, even, of course, do the things that you always would do, you know, scrape from your palette, put it on a stainless steel metal palette and work off of there. Sanitize the palette with some alcohol or Beauty So Clean when you're done. But then to take that extra precaution, again, it's like you said, we're looking out for our clients. We're looking out for ourselves too, frankly, because, you know, we're going to be exposed to our makeup kits constantly, and we need to also know that our own health is being looked out for. So taking that extra precaution to throw it under a UV light for 10 minutes, I think is, to me, it's sort of a no-brainer. Why not? The only caveat that I would say is really do your research on these companies and make sure that you are getting something that is up to code in your state and that is actually going to do what it says it's going to do.
And I know, Danessa, you want to jump on this too, but I think the thing that we've got to remember is that this is going to be something new for our industry, but there are already many makeup artists that I work with who have been doing this. And this kind of Sterilite, which is the company that is talking to me that I'm researching right now, they are gearing this towards the beauty community. But we've seen other industries like sex toy industries and aesthetics industries where they have been using this for a while. I know because a makeup artist posted it in the group yesterday. But I think
What have I been missing?
That she was using one that
they were designed,
was meant for that industry, right?
Yeah. And it's going to be one of those things where we're just keep educating ourselves. But for me, I'm also thinking the investment into these new tools are also a way to make our clients feel comfortable. And for me, that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles. We're going to keep them safe and we're going to keep them comfortable. I want to talk a little bit too, to see how you guys feel about working from palettes, because that's something that we keep kind of talking about. And I'm not talking about metal palettes for product, but we're talking about this UVA light. We're talking about that. And we're talking about putting your shadow palettes and stuff in there. Is the time over for palettes, you know, where everything's kind of in one place?
So one of the things that I think we as makeup artists should be thinking about and preparing for, and I just was talking to my good friend Julia Dalton-Brush from B3 about this. Yeah, she's a wonderful person. She's a great makeup artist. But one of the things that I think we need to be preparing for, especially if you are in the realm of film, television, commercial, is actually putting into our kit fees and thinking about shopping for personal makeup for talent. So rather than working out of our kits as we traditionally would, one of the things that I know that some of the bigger film studios like Lionsgate leaked some of their new requirements. That's one of the things that they're actually going to require of us, is to go out and shop makeup for that actor and not share anything or reuse anything on anybody else. And that's something that Julia and we both do a lot of commercial makeup. That's something that we were even talking about, you know, having those conversations with brands and with producers that, you know, if we're going to be shooting a 3 or 4 day commercial, you know, what products should we be buying specifically for each talent and bringing? I think that's a thing that we realistically need to sort of prepare for as makeup artists, and not just in the sense that our jobs will sort of change. You know, we'll have to add to our prep time. We'll have to have shopping days and things like that. But also our kit fees, you know, we can't just continue to work for the same rates when we're being expected to, let's say, provide a lot of PPE that we weren't bringing before, when we're going to have to go get a specific foundation for an actor rather than work out of our kit. These are things that we need to be thinking ahead about so that we make sure that we're compensated properly too.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting.
We've only got about 5 more minutes with the podcast, and I think that I want to hit it too, because even for people working in the bridal industry, this is an opportunity. Look at your rates. Make sure that you're working into it, that your client will leave with a mascara that's their own, a lip gloss that's their own, maybe even foundation now that is their own, so that you are providing a service where they know you're working with something that is specifically theirs. I think it's just a change in the way we've done things, but you know what? We've done it before.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
We are adaptable in this industry.
I was just thinking, through every tragedy, there's always lots of innovation. So through all of this, there's an opportunity, and not to think of this as an opportunistic time, but there is lots of opportunity for innovation. And for artists who've been waiting for their moment to shine with producing something or a product or creating an invention or whatever, this is really it. Really just thinking about what is the need right now and creating it.
Yep.
So there's this ton, in spite of it all, there is tons of opportunity for us on every level, in terms of pricing, in terms of our preparation, in terms of just how connected we are with our clients, because now we're going to be going up, above and beyond the extra mile. So I think when you look at the bright side of things, it's all good. It's like you said, James, it's all good.
I think it's gonna, the cream is gonna rise to the top.
Yeah.
The people who don't want to put in the work, who don't want to put in the time, who don't want to put in the research, are not going to be able to call themselves makeup artists anymore. And I think that it's time, my tough talk, it's time to stop being fucking lazy. Honestly, learn how to do research for yourself, learn how to separate real information from fake information. I think artists have gotten so lazy because now they can just go into a Facebook group and say, hey, what do you think about this? And we see it in lives. We'll say something and they're like, what is the name of that? And I'm like, you can Google it and it will be you. And I think that you have got to do your own research for the area that you live in, for the state that you live in, for the type of work that you do. And you've got to put together a plan that works for you. And we are here to be a resource and help you with that. But there are going to be some of those answers that you have to find out yourself. And there are going to be some of those questions that you can only answer for yourself in the type of work that you do. And I urge artists to use this time to educate themselves.
Yeah, and honestly, keeping on top of it too, you mentioned doing your research, and one thing that I just want to sort of add to that is we have to keep an open mind. This is a totally new situation. We know things now today that we didn't know 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is sort of an ever-changing situation, and I think we as artists, one of the things, James, that you mentioned in the beginning is we don't necessarily have a national regulatory body for makeup artists, and maybe we will. Maybe that'll be a really positive change that comes out of this. I don't know. But in the meantime, we are responsible for regulating our own behavior and our own kit and taking care of our clients. And that means really keeping on top of it. We should be reading about this at least weekly, I know that we don't want to just be inundated and only thinking about this, but it is going to be so important to our work going forward and our livelihood. So like it or not, like you said, we can't be lazy.
So for our listeners who want to reach out to Alcone and stock up on their disposables and the sanitation and hygiene product that you guys have always provided, what is the best way to reach out for their pro program?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can still shop with us. We are open on the web right now. Obviously, our retail division is closed. But alconemakeup.com, you can go to alconemakeup.com and shop any of the things that we can currently get our hands on. That's one thing I'll say is supply chains are a little bit weird right now. But as far as I know, we are still well stocked on brush soaps and disposables, things like that. Hand sanitizer is very, very difficult, even for us to get. We've had a relationship with Jow for gosh, I don't know, 20, 30 years, and we just can't even get our hands on the stuff, no pun intended.
We'll have to order some Rebels and Outlaws magic hands. Then,
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say. Order Rebels. But so you guys can still shop with us. You can go to alconepro.com if you want to re-up your pro account. We have a yearly pro account subscription that does get you a discount as well as free shipping. So you can check that out. There might be some changes coming to that in the next year. And you can follow us on Instagram at alconeco, where we do feature a lot of little tidbits about this stuff and tips and tricks, but also we have a daily deal. So we have an item that's on sale, and it's usually a pretty deep sale. Like sometimes I'm even surprised by the prices. I'm like, really? We're doing that for what? But so our daily deal, you can see that at the top of our website on the banner, or we generally post it in our Instagram stories as well.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you so much to you and to Alcone for always being there for us. And I want to say thank you to you and Danessa for really being at the forefront of this and working to educate artists in this time. I feel lucky to spend time with you guys. As always, guys, if you have questions for us, please reach out to us. We are on Instagram at Makeup Show Podcast. We will definitely get to all of those questions.
We love you. Continue to rate and share, and we'll be back next week with probably another amazing guest and some new information for you.
And the YouTube channel is up if you want to see our gorgeous faces. The Makeup Show Podcast. This is going to be our 4th episode where you see some video. We love you guys. We know these are not easy, but we are here for you. And our industry, as always, is one strong community. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
you. We will see you next week.
Thank you for having me, you guys. And also thank you so much for having such thoughtful conversations about this. I really appreciate the work that you guys do every episode to have these really well thought out conversations.
Thank you, love.
Oh, love fest with social distancing.
Yes.
Right.
We'll see you.
Bye.